Renee is 19. When I meet her, cocaine is fresh. She hasn't slept in 36 hours, and she won't for another 24. It is a familiar blur of coke, pot, pills, and alcohol. She has known such. She's felt the touch of awful naked men, battled depression and addiction, and attempted suicide. Her arms remember razor blades, 50 scars that speak of self-inflicted. She's full of contrast, more alive and closer to death than anyone I've known. Tell her something true when all she's known are lies. She is alive now in the patience and safety of rehab. She would ask you to remember.
Hi, my name is Renee. The first time that I ever cut myself, I was 12 years old. I didn't really even know what it was, and my parents didn't know how to react to it, so we just didn't address it, and we just kind of swept it under the rug and moved on. Several of my friends' dads were alcoholics, and we thought it was funny to pour their vodka into our fruit smoothies, and we'd get tipsy and warm and bubbly, and never really thought twice about it. Through the course of the next year and a half, I attempted suicide, and I was hiding everything from my parents because I truly believed my feelings didn't matter. I didn't see the point in letting them know what was going on with me because it wasn't going to change anything. So I kept it to myself. I became the greatest actress in the whole world for a year and a half until everything kind of came to a head for me. I got stuck in this situation where I just didn't know what to do anymore. I couldn't stop cutting. I tried to kill myself again. I tried to get hit by a car, and people at school would stop talking to me. They had interventions for me, and I finally told my parents, and that's when we moved back on New Year's of my junior year to Orlando. I had a brief phase where I started to do good again, and it didn't last very long. And it was then I started getting into pills, taking uppers and downers. Before I'd experimented here and there, but it started to get pretty serious my senior year. I was drinking more regularly. I didn't want to deal with anything, and the more that I drank, the more reasons I had to drink. You know, it started off as a party. It was fun. You know, I like to go out, I like to dance, I like to be around all these people and be the life of the party, but it wasn't a party anymore after so long. It was something I had to do. Then things started to go downhill pretty fast. When I pick up, you know, it doesn't take long for me to lose everything. I ended up moving in with my drug dealer, and from there, you know, I got myself into some pretty bad situations. I started getting very addicted to coke and pills. It was just this regular cycle of drinking and coke and pills and weed, and one thing led to another. Every time I'd use, something bad would happen to me, and in order not to think about it, I had to use, and it was just like this vicious cycle. Then finally, I was supposed to get a phone call in the morning between like 9 and 11, which is like this big gap, and David calls me and he tells me that they're going to come and pick me up. I got to get these tests. I have to get shots, and I hate shots. I was like, forget about it. I said, okay. You know, I hang up the phone. I'm freaking out. Then I get a call back, and they say, you know, not only do I have to get shots, but I'm getting picked up in like 2 hours to go get them. I wanted to say no, but I was like, okay. And I hung up the phone. My friends came, and they picked me up, and we went to the treatment center. I said goodbye, and it was probably one of the most painful things I've ever done. I would stay there at least 60 days. I committed to 60 days because they were going to help pay for it. And I get there, and they basically told me they couldn't accept me because after asking me the questions to initiate, to get me in, I had too much in my system, and they'd found the cuts on my arms, and they wouldn't accept me. They told me to come back in 5 days because the chances of me having a seizure and not making it through the detox were too great. So that was when I spent 5 days at David's home with Jamie and a small group of people, and we just hung out, and they just loved on me, and we spent time together just preparing myself to go. And it was in those 5 days that Jamie asked me if he could write an article about my story. But I figured if 1 or 2 people read it, you know, if even one person was affected by it, then it was worth everything. Like, that was what I made it for. So I said okay, and I told him my story, and then I went to treatment. And while I was in there, I started hearing about all these amazing things that are happening with the story, and I finally got to see it, and it meant so much to me, just the little details that just fit. To write Love in Our Arms is what made it possible for me to go to treatment, and essentially that set up a support group, and it gave me hope to know that there was a purpose. You know, all the people that started supporting this movement now, you know, wearing the shirts, the different bands, people talking about it. I hear, you know, people telling me what it means to them and what it's done for them every day. And it's just like this tangible confirmation that there was a purpose for all that, that I lived through that for a reason. And now that I'm finally clean, as of 14 months ago, you know, God's really used that to make a change in other people. If I was to say anything to the people out there that, you know, relate to this story, which obviously it's not something that we struggle with alone. It's not meant to be a secret. You know, I think that's why it's such a success, because so many people are going through the same thing, that, you know, you're not alone in your struggles, and that there is hope. It does get better. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, I won't lie, but it's worth it. And every time you fight through it, it gets better. It gets a little bit easier. The stars are always there, but we miss them in the darkened clouds. We miss them in the storms. Tell them to remember hope. We have hope.